Why Homo sapiens outlived other animals. Lock in.
Take a look at your hands, the shape of your thumb, the way your skin feels, the specific structure of your skull. You probably think of these traits as the definitive human blueprint. But for nearly all of the last 2 million years, if you went for a walk across the plains of Africa or the forests of Europe, you wouldn't have been the only type of human around. To us, the idea of another human species sounds like science fiction, something out of Middle Earth or
Y'all think there's stuff outside, like other humans, of course. Like we live in like a galaxy. Well, we live in a singular galaxy, the Milky Way, surrounded by other galaxies and other Milky Ways. So I feel like it's only fair. Like as a Christian, I believe that when we die, we go to heaven, and there's debate there. We can go back and forth, but like even in that belief, does it specify anywhere in the Bible that there's no other humans? Because if God is almighty and all powerful, then he surely has the power to create other human species. Would they also have their own earth? Would they have the Bible? Would they have the Quran? Let's just thought.
a distant galaxy. But it was the reality for almost our entire history. As recently as 50,000 years ago,
Recently.
which is a blink of an eye in evolutionary time, at least 6 different species of humans lived on this planet simultaneously.
You see, I don't understand that. I remember speaking to this about my teacher like a few years back when I was in school. It's just when he says different species, does that mean we have different genetic types? Does our blood, percentage and genetic pool differ? And like, could a triangle make a baby with a star? And could it be a diamond? Would that be a diamond or would that be a square? Like what are the because like I know it's like for example certain species of birds, if you have a species of birds and they are forced to live one in the Antarctica and one in the desert, after enough time they become their own separate species in the same subclass. So if they then meet up again later, they can't breed and have kids.
Some were giants, some were tiny, some
I'd hate to be tiny. I'm not gonna say that, but if I was any shorter than this, I think I wouldn't. Yeah, just call it a day,
were
man.
incredibly strong, and some were arguably just as smart as we are. Yet today, there is only us, one lone survivor out of at least 9 distinct human lineages.
But he's probably gonna go into, but what counts? Like, if I'm a human and he's just taller than me, like Wembenyama, like we're still the humans, no?
We have become so used to being alone that we've forgotten how strange it is. We aren't just a species, we were a remnant. So what happened to the others? Why did we, a relatively fragile, physically unimpressive primate,
Yeah, that is another. We as humans, besides like our intelligence and our ability to create mass weapons of mass destruction, we're in like if you scratch all that aside, besides if we humans didn't work together the way we did now, we wouldn't even make it on the top 10 of the food chain, the hierarchy. We'd genuinely be bugs in the eyes of like gorillas and stuff.
end up as the last one standing while every other version of humanity vanished?
Communism or
To
something like that.
understand this, we have to stop thinking of evolution as a ladder and start thinking of it as a messy, sprawling bush. For a long time, the story we told ourselves was simple. Homo erectus turned into Neanderthals, and Neanderthals turned into us. It was a straight line of progress. But that's completely wrong. While our ancestors were evolving in Africa, other human species were thriving elsewhere. In Europe and the Middle East, you had the Neanderthals, thick-boned, barrel-chested, and built to survive the brutal cold of the Ice Age. In Asia, there were the Denisovans, a mysterious group we only recently discovered through DNA. On the island of Flores in Indonesia, there was Homo floresiensis, a species of human that stood only 3 feet tall.
Again, like, do we just not count this as like genetic differences? Like, what makes just because it's 3 foot, we classify that as a dwarf. But what would make that a distinct, different human feature? Like, what difference is that 3 foot thing compared to this normal sized human? Like, brain size, brain activities, genetic, chromosomes.
Often called the hobbits. There was Homo luzonensis in the Philippines, and the long-lived Homo erectus, who survived for nearly 2 million years, 10 times longer than we've been around. The question
That is crazy to think of. Like people, like I wonder like how far if they even had consciousness, like a consciousness to call a consciousness. Like could they think of themselves in that way? And if they did, like how? Because like they were clearly they weren't as smart as humans because humans are pretty clever I say that, but like, you know, like we were able, not me specifically or you, but like people were able to create these things, these technologies. Like how, what's the intelligence gap between a Stellian and like a modern day human?
The question of why we survived while they didn't usually gets answered with a single word: intelligence.
Yeah, that
We
would have
like
thought
to
so.
think we were just smarter. But the more we dig into the archaeological record, the more that answer falls apart. Neanderthals, for instance, had brains that were, on average, larger than ours. They made complex tools, they used medicinal plants, they buried their dead with flowers, and they created art. They weren't the grunting brutes of Victorian caricatures. They were sophisticated, empathetic humans. If they were strong, smart, and well adapted to their environment,
Why did they, not make it?
why are they gone and we are here? The answer isn't about the individual, it's about the group.
I called it. See, humans is like when we come together, there's no animal on the earth that can literally they couldn't like we're outnumbered, but you could say the same for like ants. Like ants are in heaves of millions. If ants had the intelligence of humans to to choose to come together, besides looking past their strength, with they are smart, they're strong. Don't get me wrong, for an ant they're strong, but if they had the minds of humans, who knows what they could get up to?
Think about the way you live your life today. You probably use a phone you didn't build, eat
Yeah,
food you didn't grow,
yeah,
and follow laws written by people who
you
died
did.
before you were born. You are part of a massive, invisible network of cooperation.
But that's the thing. Even though I'm not part of any of that, the fact that they have came before me and given me the opportunity, I have the ability to then go on, learn, and then change those rules for the future generation.
This is the sapiens secret. Anthropologists have noticed a striking difference when they compare the sites where Neanderthals lived to the sites where early Homo sapiens lived. Neanderthal tools are almost always made from stone found within a few miles of their camps. They were local. They lived in small, isolated family groups. If a local resource failed or a disease hit, that was it. There was no backup. Early Homo sapiens, however, were doing something radical. In our camps, archaeologists find seashells from hundreds of miles away and stone tools made from obsidian that could only be found across mountain ranges. This tells us that 100,000 years ago, we were already trading. We were
But how that again, my question comes up: how far is these Homo sapiens knowledge compared to our human DNA? Because the only reason us you technically are smart, classified smart or understand more than these guys was because each generation that came after is information was kept, so we didn't have to do the hard part of learning how this worked. We just thought this is how this works, and then off that we built more and then continuously built. So everything, the only reason that we have our intelligence now is because we were brought up this way in schools. If you take a baby, if you take like 10 babies and like shove them on an island and force them to like grow up, they'd probably be closer to this than to what we are. I think that's the only essential difference in the intelligence between us and Homo sapiens back then.
building networks of strangers. We were the only species that could meet someone we'd never seen before and decide to cooperate rather than fight. And the reason we could do that is because of something that happens
Conscious.
entirely inside our heads: symbolic thought. This is the real turning point. Sapiens developed the ability to believe in things that don't physically exist. We invented myths, gods, human
Debatable.
rights, and the concept of nations. If you tell a chimpanzee that if he gives you a banana now, he'll get infinite bananas in the afterlife, he's not going to do it. He knows you're lying because he can't conceptualize a future or a heaven. But humans can. We can align thousands of strangers under a single banner or a shared belief. This allowed us to organize in numbers that no other human species could match. When a group of 30 Neanderthals encountered a group of 500 sapiens who all believed they were descended from the same great spirit, the outcome wasn't decided by muscle, he was decided by math. But there's a darker side to the survival story. For a long time, we wondered if we outcompeted the other species or if we actively eliminated them.
I think it comes down to, like you earlier said, that since we had so many, we could outnumber. So they might have had the general, like they might have been like twice as strong as us, but we had 4 times their numbers. So our strength mathematically outweighed their strength. They might have been smarter than us, but we had so many people that their smartness essentially became useless in a sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
The truth is likely a messy combination of both. As sapiens migrated out of Africa, we moved into territories that other humans had occupied for hundreds of thousands of years. We brought with us more efficient hunting techniques and those massive social networks. We didn't necessarily have to go to war, we just had to be slightly better at gathering the available food. Over time, the other species were pushed into more marginal, harsher environments where they slowly faded away. However, we didn't just replace them, we absorbed them. In 2010, scientists finished sequencing the Neanderthal.
500 people meet a few strong Norwegians or Netherlands. Someone's gonna fuck. Someone's gonna do something with the other and create a baby. It's only expected.
Genome, and they found something that changed our understanding of ourselves forever. If you are of non-African descent, about 2% of your DNA is Neanderthal. If you have ancestry from Southeast Asia or Oceania, you carry Denisovan DNA. We didn't just meet these other humans, we lived with them. We had children with them.
Ooh.
The others didn't entirely disappear. They became a part of us.
Yeah. So that makes the title so misleading. Like I said, that could be why I believe there's human separation from if a tall person made out and had babies with a short person here on the other side, we'd have a short, skinny baby due to the genetic type. Fast metabolism, fat. If a skinny dude had a baby with another skinny dude, it'd be a skinnier kid. And then there's also genetic, mutation where a short person and a short person could have a tall person. I don't think that they went extinct, but rather they, like you said, absorbed into our, not absorbed, I don't think there's a word absorbed, rather than we came as one, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of the title, but
As we look back at the eighth species that didn't make it, there is a haunting realization. Take Homo erectus. They were the most successful human species in history in terms of longevity. They saw the world change for 2 million years. They survived multiple ice ages. They were masters of the hand axe.
You'd think after 2 million years of learning, they'd advance, which kind of scares people. Like, we haven't lived on this earth that long, like this species specifically. So just imagine if we're able to cross just 10,000 years. Simply put, 10,000 years of our current, in the last 3 years, AI has advanced so much more in the past 50 years. So imagine what 10,000 years could look like.
And then they weren't. Their extinction suggests that being good enough for your environment isn't a permanent guarantee. The world changes, and eventually.
So it's not about being good. Essentially, it's about adapting, and humans are essentially, if not the best animal or living thing to adapt.
The niche you've carved out disappears. The last of the other humans to go were likely the hobbits on the island of Flores, surviving perhaps 12,000 to 50,000 years ago. Imagine that. When we were starting to develop agriculture, when we were building the first permanent settlements, there might have still been a completely different type of human living on a remote island just across the water. We were that close to not being alone. Today, we stand at a strange crossroads. We are the only species in the history of the planet that its own closest relative. The gap between us and the next smartest animal, the chimpanzee or the bonobo, is a massive, lonely canyon.
It's genuinely you can't even fathom just how, sure, you could argue that a chimpanzee has the intelligence of a 70 IQ. Let's say a chimpanzee has a 70 IQ, and the average human has 110. You could think, oh, that's just 40 IQ. But if you factor in things like consciousness, self-taught, and not self consciousness, self-assessment, and what's the other one? I forgot there's another one. But if you we are so advanced in terms of the animal kingdom and at thinking, not strength, not speed, not size, but thinking. It's genuinely, it's so hard to try and explain it. But we are so the chimpanzees are essentially, if you're comparing a chimpanzee to a newborn baby, that's closer than a chimpanzee to a 16-year-old teenager. A 16-year-old teenager is leagues ahead in terms of survivability, adaptability, and understanding of the general structure of the earth.
Canyon.
probably by the age of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, like a toddler has, if not is smarter than the average chimpanzee, or the smartest chimpanzee. Maybe not the smartest, of course, but you get what I mean.
Only exists because all the intermediate steps, all the other versions of human, are gone. We look in the mirror and see the natural state of being human, but we're actually an outlier. We're the result of a series of lucky breaks, a freakish talent for gossip and myth-making, and perhaps a bit of prehistoric ruthlessness. Being the sole survivors gives us a distorted view of our place in nature. We think of ourselves as the masters of the world, but for most of our history, we were just another clever primate trying to avoid being eaten by a saber-toothed cat. The 8 species we outlived are a reminder that humanity is a broad, diverse category.
Which gets me like, imagine a world where humans didn't evolve to be Homo sapiens, and rather tigers did, or like chimpanzees did. We wouldn't have the ability to think for ourselves. We'd just be in caves fighting and feeding ourselves. And then chimpanzees would be the one building structures and building houses and stuff like that. It's such a weird thing to think, but like that's essentially the difference between us and the next closest animal to like
That we
intelligence.
happened to win the monopoly over. They show us that there are other ways to be human, other ways to see the world, other ways to survive, and other ways to dream. Every time you feel a sense of connection to a total stranger because of a shared hobby, a shared religion, or even a shared love for a sports team, you are using the exact biological superpower that allowed us to outlast the Neanderthals. That ability to bridge the gap between me and you through a
Again, I wouldn't say outlast, rather become one.
shared story is what built the pyramids, put us on the moon, and created the world you see outside your window.
So essentially stepping on the backs of others and manipulating others to create a world we dream of. That's kind of like, that's how, like, besides like, humans are inherently selfish, It's just, it's
But as
bound
we
to
look at
happen.
the ruins of the species that came before us, there's a final, sobering lesson. Evolution doesn't have a goal. It doesn't care who is the protagonist of the story. The Neanderthals were strong, the Erectus were durable, and the Hobbits were resilient. They all had their turn. We are the last ones left in the room holding the torch that firelit our ancestors' caves. We didn't survive because we were better in some moral sense. We survived because we were more connected. And in a world that feels increasingly divided, it's worth remembering that those connections aren't just a social convenience. They are the only reason we are still here to tell the story. For 300,000 years, we've been the species that talks, that trades, and that imagines. The other 8 are gone, leaving us with a planet to ourselves and a haunting question. Now that we've won the world, what are we going to do with it?
Conquer Mars, probably. But yeah, no, like I said, it's an astonishing feat, because we aren't who we are because we were like geniuses. We're just essentially lucky after human selection and survival of the fittest, if you will, allowing us to be just like, we aren't essentially here for a purpose. We're just here because the purpose of nature has pushed us forward. So it kind of tells you like nature's kind of powerful or something like that. I remember my English teacher talking about that. Anyway, but yeah, no, I guess we're all humans in a bit. Pete. But yeah, no, I guess in a way, we're all humans. That was a pretty good watch, though. To be fair. Peace.